in the season of Advent. Do you guys prepare for Advent? How many people are familiar with the word Advent? And okay, good, yeah. Another way is calling it Christmas. We are in the Christmas season. Advent is historically a church thing. So if you just go around saying the word Advent, you're going to get some looks of confusion because it's not terribly common outside of church. But essentially what Advent is that we're actually preparing for something. In these days and weeks leading up to Christmas, the church has intentionally prepared ways in which we create space and anticipate the coming or the beginning of something new. And for us, we would say that that's the birth of Jesus. Now, December 25th is somewhat of an irrelevant date. That's not the actual birthday of Jesus, but that is the marker for us here in the West as we lead up to Christmas. And so what we're doing each Sunday is trying to slow down and to create room. I don't know about you, but very quickly, come Christmas morning and the day after, like Christmas presents, all the trash is picked up and you start putting the ornaments away, and some people leave their lights on for like 3 months outside their house. Remember one year, I think it actually got warm and then all the clips that hold the lights on the house broke because how it got so warm. That's how long it took me to take my lights down. But many, it cleans up very quickly and all of a sudden Christmas is over and we've moved into the new year and on to the next thing. Has anyone used the word busy lately? Have you found yourself saying it more? Right? You talk to people and, oh man, so busy. And man, I actually don't feel that busy. It's great. I want to keep it that way. Like we're in this season, we can tend to move very fast and then we can move past very quickly. And Advent's a way of us actually slowing down in this season of Christmas to prepare for, to anticipate, to open ourselves up to, one, the coming of Jesus, that he has come. God has entered in the flesh through the Virgin Mary as a baby to enter into the pain, the suffering, all that is broken in our world, to redeem all things, to bring beauty and goodness and rightness, and to set things the way that they are intended to be. And then we also realize that we sit in this tension that things still aren't the way that they're supposed to be, are they? You could probably name a number of things in your own life right now that aren't set right. You don't feel right. The experiences you have aren't right. There's pain. There's hard things, there's suffering, there's things that you want to avoid, and there's things that you want to find comfort in. And we also wait for the second coming of Jesus. That we believe that Jesus and his kingdom has actually broken in and is changing the way you and I get to experience life. And then one day we will experience the fullness of God's kingdom. So we get to sit in this tension in Advent, realizing that light has broken in, yet there's still darkness, but the darkness will not push out the light. And so over these weeks, we light a candle, which we'll do here in a moment. And so I invite you just to be a little bit reflective this morning, just to prepare your heart, your mind, that I'm going to invite you into an exercise here shortly to reflect, to actually create a little bit of space, to slow down from the busyness of this season and to be open to the ways in which God's moving towards you if you'll allow him to, if you'll create the space to, if you'll maybe just be a little less busy and notice maybe what he's doing in and through this season. So I just want to read a passage, and we're going to play around with it just a little bit. The birth story of Jesus, we see it in a couple different places in the scriptures. This morning, we're going to pluck through just a little bit of it in the book of Matthew, which if you're new to the Bible, that's the very first book in what's called the New Testament. And there's 4 of these that capture the life of Jesus: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So we're going to be in Matthew here, and just starts this way. I think we're in Matthew 2, 1-3. Now, after Jesus was born, so the birth has happened, in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, Magi from the east. Did anyone have a quick couple words to define the Magi? Anyone know who they are? Wise men. Yep, it's another one. Good. What else? Do we know a little bit more about them? Astrologers. Astronomers. We were at our college group this last Wednesday. I was hanging out with them, and there was a lot of question on what's the difference between astrology and astronomy. And I still walked away not knowing. So some of you might know, and you can tell us afterwards. But these astrologers or astronomers, those who study the skies and the stars, are actually coming from the east, and they arrive in Jerusalem saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." When Herod the king heard this, do we know a little bit about Herod? We can cheat because we're on the back end of this history. Do we know what Herod goes on to do after this? That's quite terrible. Bad guy. Why? Yeah, so he does this whole thing where this timeline here, we read it very quickly, like all of a sudden the Magi just showed up, like they drove up in their Tesla. No, it took them quite a bit of time to get to these places, and then there was time in between, and the news comes back. Some would say that there was actually maybe like a 2 to 4 year time gap between these events happening, maybe as quick as 6 to 12 months. But he then says, I actually need to, there's one child in the room, I need to harm greatly all of the children that are 2 years and younger. His response to this is to go on a spree of taking life of certain ages. So we know that he does some very terrible things. Now, if you look at the history of Herod, there's actually multiple Herods because of family lineage, and you think of King Herod, there's actually a few different ones. They are still some of the most gruesome people you could ever come across. The count of people's lives under their hands, under their siege is great. And when King Herod heard this, that has been born the King of the Jews, he was troubled. He was not okay. He was disturbed, some of the translations would have. And it's out of this trouble, it's out of this disturbance that he actually goes and acts in certain ways. And we actually read this as part of our college community group this Wednesday, and what I realized very quickly is I have Herod moments. I have moments when something enters my life, and very quickly I could be troubled by it. I could be disturbed by it. That my most natural response is that this thing that has just come to me in my life is not good, is bad, is terrible. And then what we can tend to do, maybe our most natural responses, or what I should say is I can do, is I then have a tendency, I need to protect this threat that's entered into my life, this thing that's unwanted, that's unfamiliar, that's actually threatening me. I need to get control of this. That I need to respond in a way to control the situation, because as it's entered my life, while unwanted, I've predetermined that it's not good. That this is a bad thing for me, so then I must respond. Do you have any Herod moments in that sense? Maybe your actions aren't as gruesome, but the starting place is unfortunately quite similar, isn't it? That something comes into our life and that very quickly we predetermine that it is not good. And I am disturbed and I am troubled. And then we have a choice of how we respond from that disturbance or from that trouble. So he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him, because oftentimes the way of the king is the way for all. If we go to the next passage. And gathering together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They said to him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for this is what has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are by no means least among the leaders of Judah. For from you will come forth a ruler who will shepherd my people, Israel. Next one. Then Herod secretly called for the Magi and determined from the exact time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search carefully for the child, and when you have found him, report to me so that I too may come and worship him. And again, on this side of history, we know what this is very quickly. We know that he is lying and manipulating the situation to benefit himself. Again, his most natural response to being troubled and disturbed by what he seems as not good. What he has predetermined as bad, what he has predetermined as troubling, what he has predetermined as a threat in his own life. And so then he protects through manipulation. Continue. There we go. After hearing the king, they went on their way. And behold, the star, which they had seen in the east, went on ahead of them until it came to a stop over the place where the child was to be found. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. Maybe a part of what Matthew is doing in this particular narrative is he is actually pinning against each other two ways of responding when things enter into our life, and maybe the things that God is doing that's beyond our understanding. We see Herod, who has predetermined what the outcome is and has predetermined a response, and it's one out of his own protection, his own self-gain. And then you have the Magi, the wise men, maybe ones who are seen outside of the ways of maybe religion or outside of faith because they're into the stars, astrology, astronomy. Again, the difference you can figure out. But they actually are maybe seen as ones who would not be following God, the God, or the ways of Jesus. They have different ways of going about making sense of their life, don't they? But is it not in that they actually seem to be a little bit more open to this thing breaking into their lives? And what is their response? Joy. That they see something happening that is beyond them, that is larger than their own story, that maybe doesn't have to be a threat, that doesn't have to be predetermined, but can be open to what God is doing to enter into this world, again, standing on this side of history. But in the moment, it's hard to understand what's happening in our lives in the moment, isn't it? It's only after years that we can look back and sometimes make sense of things. And so we have the advantage point here to look at both of these and question when things enter into our life to disrupt peace. When things happen in our life to us, or that we choose, or that we catch by assimilation, whatever it is, when things enter into our life that might disrupt the ways in which we've predetermined, or the ways that we've planned, or the ways that we think things should go, or the ways that should benefit us most, do we respond troubled, or do we respond with joy? Are we at peace no matter the circumstances that we find ourselves in? And I'll very quickly say, of course not. The amount of times that things happen and there goes my peace, like just driving on the freeway, like so quickly, all the peace that like I just had from a nice quiet morning and like time in prayer and all, and then I get in the car and get on the 41 and it's like so very quickly our peace is robbed. And do you have anything in your life right now that is robbing your peace? Any circumstance you find yourself in, any context you find yourself in, specific incident, specific person or people. Is there anything in your life in the last days and the last weeks and the last months, or even as you look ahead to the next days and the next weeks and the next months, is there anything in your life that tends to be taking your peace? And I wonder, as I wondered this week, is it because I have predetermined something? That I've made a plan that I think these things should play out this way, and that all of this should happen like this, and then I become the one that's troubled. And then all of my reactions and responses are actually a lack of peace, which we can see in the life of Herod actually starts to create more chaos and more havoc and more grief and more loss and more suffering. Or is the invitation like the Magi to be looking for something greater beyond what we can see and understand? Every single situation that I find myself in, is there actually something happening here more than what I can perceive? Could God actually be doing something even if I disagree with the way that he's going about it because I'm troubled, I'm bothered by it, I don't like it, I don't think that's best? And could it be that when we open ourselves up like the Magi, to say, God, I know you're doing something great in this world beyond what I could understand, and then we just take it as it comes? could we actually be at more peace? Can you think of anyone in your life that like it just seems like they're always at peace? Like when I sit and actually reflect on a couple of those people, it seems like they're just able to absorb life. Now, none of them are dismissive or unaware of the pain and the grief and the suffering and the things that are hard. Actually, they seem to be people that are more aware of it. They actually are in touch with the pain and the realities of life. Yet at the same time, they walk with a sense of peace. They walk with still a sense of encouragement. They walk with an effect on people that actually seems to carry in other people's lives, where they can sense some peace amidst hard circumstances, that they can find hope even when things are dismal, that they can actually still have a little bit of joy in and amidst suffering. I imagine these wise men to be the people that as they were walking on the road, as they were traveling on the road, you got to figure how many people they came in contact with over this time, that they were people that others looked at and watched and said, man, what do they mean, this star? What do you mean the king has come? Wait, hold on. You're just going to just be open to this thing in the sky and go follow it? Why would... And then people look at him and go, but something is attractive about this. Something makes sense. I wonder if Matthew is asking us to look at the life of Herod and the life of the Magi and say, how do you respond? Are you at peace? What do you tend to do when things that are unwanted or things that you predetermine as bad, how do you respond? How do you respond? We got one more. And after they came into the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they fell down and worshiped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented to him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And after being warned by God in a dream not to return to Herod, the Magi left for their own country by another way. See, in this, it wraps up with this idea that they are willing to go the way that they did not determine. They had a way in mind. They knew the route back to where they needed to go. They had plans. They knew who they were going to see on the way back. They knew where they were going to stop and rest. They knew they had something planned. But yet they were open for their plans to change and to be open to another way. Something that I find oftentimes uncomfortable is the way of Jesus. Like when he has things that talks about the way that I should handle myself with other people or in certain contexts or even just to my own life and my own self. When he talks about the way that we should handle our own money and our own time, the way that he asks us actually to come in touch with and care for those that are different from us, to actually love those who persecute us, to offer ourselves in service to other people, to see everything that I have as an opportunity to pass through for the sake of other people. I go on and on and on, and Jesus has this other way for us in every circumstance. Are we open to the ways without predetermining the ways that I have already set? Because again, if you put my life up to King Herod, there's many a moments when something comes into my life unwanted that I predetermined bad, and then I now have to choose how to respond. And I hope that I'm becoming more and more like the Magi that are constantly looking above the thing that I can see in front of me and imagining that God is actually at work aligning the stars for the sake of us, that God is actually using his creation to talk to those that he has created, that there's something so much larger happening in every single moment. I've been saying this lately, and some of this will make sense to some of you and maybe not, and that's okay. But I keep finding myself saying, I'm actually starting to believe more and more Paul's words, that we are not fighting against flesh and blood, but powers and principalities, that there's actually the spiritual dynamics in every single thing that we find ourselves in. And Becca's going to come up in a moment here and read a scripture that's a prophecy from centuries before Jesus. And one of the things that it continues to drive home is that God has been up to something so much longer than you and I have experienced life and will experience life. That he is continuing to move to bring peace here on earth in ways that you and I naturally can't bring, and that it actually asks us to open ourselves up to the ways of Jesus, to be people of peace who get to enter into every situation we find ourselves in the hopes of bringing peace. That Jesus has a way for us that's going to feel uncomfortable, that's going to actually confront us, that's going to challenge the way that we most naturally want to see and behave. But I don't know about you, when I see this in other people's lives, when I try this on clunkily every once in a while, it seems that good tends to come from it, even when I can't see it. To offer myself to a different way. May I not predetermine the things that are coming into my life that I either choose or catch. What situation right now in your life is robbing peace? What situation or situations is in your life right now where you're wrestling with, you're sitting with, you're up late at night with, you don't know what to do with, that's causing angst and instability, and you just feel offset and a little bit wobbly? And what is it for you? And what would it look like to pause even right now and just imagine the God of the cosmos actually working through it? In the midst of it, actually working through you. We're going to have Becca come up and join us, and she is going to lead us in our candle lighting. And I believe that we will experience peace, though maybe you feel, even as my message comes towards us, that am I supposed to feel at peace right now? Am I or am I not? May we be open to even just the listening of the words that she reads here. She'll have a way for us to participate, and then I have a reflection for us.
Thank you, Ryan. My name is Becca Uropkin. I've been coming to Midtown for about 2 years. I am part of a wonderful community group, my Clovis peeps. I see some of you. And I also serve downstairs in the older kids' Sunday school class and with Midtown Youth, the older preteens and teens. And if you have kids in those classes or that participate in those events, thank you for sharing your kids with me. I delight in them, and they're so much fun. So this morning we are going to light the candle of peace, and I invite you to stand with me and as I read our passage together, and we'll light the candle after the passage. So the passage is Isaiah 9, verses 2 through 7, and I'll be reading from New Living Translation. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. For those who live in a land of deep darkness, a light will shine. You will enlarge the nation of Israel, and its people will rejoice. They will rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, and like warriors dividing the plunder. For you will break the yoke of their slavery and lift the heavy burden from their shoulders. You will break the oppressor's rod, just as you did when you destroyed the army of Midian. The boots of the warrior and the uniforms blood-stained by war will all be burned. They will be fuel for the fire. For a child is born to us, a son is given to us. The government will rest on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His government and its peace will never end. He will rule with fairness and justice from the throne of his ancestor David for all eternity. The passionate commitment of the Lord of heaven's armies will make this happen. So I invite you to read along with me. There will be words on the screen above, and you'll read the bolded text. The people walking amongst the shadows have seen a great light. On those living in a pitch-dark land, light has dawned. This light comes from a child born with authority already resting on him. He has many different names: Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. Eternal justice and righteousness will be established by him and reign in his kingdom. We celebrate lighting the peace candle, for we have heard the name of God. So last Sunday we lit the candle of hope, and today we will light the candle of peace. And I think there's no better time than now with what's going on in the world, what's to come in 2024, and what's going on in our personal lives, that we need the Prince of Peace. So come, Prince of Peace.
Thank you, Becca. Thank you much. Why don't we take a seat? I'm going to invite us into a way of reflecting to invite this Prince of Peace into your life. Hopefully, tangibly through a specific circumstance in your life that you sense is taking peace from you. That's taking peace from others, something that's weighing on you, something that you don't understand, you don't want, something that has entered into your life that you would have rather it not. And this is a way of reflecting on scripture or a passage to almost imagine ourselves in the text a little bit, to imagine a character or two, how we relate to them, how they're relating to us, even how they might relate to our specific circumstances. And in this, may we be open to the invitation that Jesus has for us, that he has come to bring peace. And now what we know in other words is that it's a peace that's actually beyond our understanding. I don't know about you, but I don't like that very much. I like to think that I can understand things and I can make sense of the world and that I can know the next steps and I will find a way to understand whatever it is that needs to be understood. But he actually says that this is the peace above the understanding, which means, I think, that it's a peace that's only found in practicing the presence of a person. And that person is Jesus, that he's actually offering something beyond what you and I can make sense of. And while I don't like that, I actually find maybe the greatest sense of peace in that. Because I don't have to understand everything to actually be at peace. And if we look at the language of peace, what we're talking about is wholeness. That things are actually the way that they were intended to be. The way that God originally created them, shalom. That there is a wholeness in our lives, and there's wholeness with others, there's wholeness in our world. And so I'm going to ask us to reflect. I'm going to invite the worship team forward. And they're just going to strum in the background a little bit. Enter in the best you can. For those that might practice some form of prayerful meditation or journaling or closing your eyes every once in a while, breathing and reflecting, sometimes this can be a little bit easier to enter in. If that's not common to you, this could feel a little bit uncomfortable and awkward and unknown. Just do your best and just open up to this time however much you can. And so we're just going to invite God to just come in this moment. Not that he's not here with us already, but that we just say, come, Holy Spirit. And just notice his presence with us the best we know how. I'm just going to ask you to close your eyes. Maybe just taking a couple deep breaths. In a comfortable position. Stilling your body. And do your best to put yourself in the long, loving gaze of God. Let your body, soul, and spirit come to know that you are in God's loving presence. And now simply just consider how you're showing up this morning. What's on your mind? What's in your heart? Are you feeling happy with life? Are you calm and serene, or perhaps tired, frustrated, and fed up? God knows you better than you know yourself, so you can be honest with him. And now just bringing your whole self to prayer. Allow God to bring to mind a specific area in your life that is lacking peace. A specific relationship, an incident, a specific desire, anything that you're currently involved in or experiencing that is not whole. Something that's not the way it was meant to be. And now I invite you to imagine King Herod from the birth story of Jesus that we just read. Imagine him in your shoes, being faced with the same context, the same incident, the same desire, the same person. Imagine all that could come from his troubled and disturbed response. Him wanting to gain control and to self-protect at any cost. Him predetermining that it is all bad. How would he respond to the situation you find yourself in? How bad could your current situation actually get if he were in your shoes? Let yourself go there. Now, imagine the Magi from the birth story of Jesus. Imagine them in your shoes being faced with the same context, same incident, the same desire, the same person or people. Imagine all the good that could come from ones who are open to looking for and seeking something greater than their own story. Being open to anything that comes into their life, not predetermining whether it's good or bad, willing to open themselves up to what is in front of them and to the journey toward it. How beautiful could your current situation be? How peaceful could your current situation be? And allow yourself to dream. And now in your current situation that's lacking peace, that's unwanted in your life, that's lacking wholeness in the way things are supposed to be, go ahead and step back into your shoes. And imagine the Magi who responded to God using his creation of a star to speak to those he created. A dream to not return, not to go the way they planned, choosing to go another way. What is the way of peace in your current situation that's lacking peace? What's a different way to respond than your most natural ways? Or in the ways that you can only see right now? How is the Lord inviting you toward peace this morning? To be open to his ways in and through any situation you find yourself in. A peace that is not dependent on circumstance, a peace that is beyond your current and limited understanding. What's a different way? In John 14:27, Jesus says, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. Do not be troubled. Do not be afraid." One last motion. Just sit there and simply talk with God for a moment. With Jesus, with his Spirit. Whether you have words or not, invite his peace into your current context. Receive it.